Hi, I'm Lucy.
And I'm Ross.
And we are back from E3, so we thought we'd do a little bit of a kind of discussion / wrap-up show just about our experience there. It was a good year. How did you find it?
Yeah, no, for me, E3 had a lot to live up to this year because of obviously last year, 2 new consoles.
It was a bit
loads going
manic.
on. Yeah, but this year it was all about the games, which is what they promised. And yeah, I think it was a really, really strong E3 as an overall.
There were some great games on the show floor. It seemed smooth. I mean, this was my third E3, and it just sort of. So when I first went, it was sort of the wrapping up the generation. Last year it was all about the hardware. This year was all about the games, and it was just very smooth sailing.
Yeah, no, and I would agree. This is my 6th, so I would say that actually probably one of my favourites as well. So you were right.
Let's start our wrap up with everything that we saw. So that Monday was busy, to say the least. So we started off at Microsoft.
Yes.
What was your highlight?
I've got to say, for me, the highlight of the overall show from Microsoft was probably the Master Chief Collection. I know it's not Halo 5, but it's...
We saw a tantalising glimpse of Halo 5.
Yeah, and for me, this is kind of like, for anybody that hasn't played Halo, or even has, now on Xbox One, you can literally play through all of the games.
Remastered.
For Halo 2 remastered beautifully, so got the full treatment on that one. Plus, from a multiplayer point of view, they've got over 100 maps.
Custom playlists.
You love the
I love the custom playlist idea.
But that for me has just got, there's so much gameplay there that people can experience, and some of the classics that were in Halo 2.
It's kind of the definitive multiplayer experience. Everyone always thinks of Halo.
Yeah, and then obviously you also get the Halo 5 beta included, which is obviously everyone's going to be looking forward to playing whenever that arrives. And also some of the TV show, so you get that included in the whole box. So that was probably my one highlight of the real standout for it.
And the opener, of course, was Call of Duty.
Yes.
Ideas don't determine who's right. Power determines who's right. And I have the power.
But it was the single player, and they sort of do this every time. And for me, I just sort of want to see the multiplayer because that's the kind of bread and butter of it is it's multiplayer. And although the single player looks great, I really loved the bit where you ripped the car door off and used that as a shield. I thought that was really cool. The setting was cool. I just sort of want to see, like a new game mode.
I think definitely. I mean, Call of Duty is a franchise, huge, it's the biggest franchise there is. And I always think when they do this first reveal, they'd love to show off the graphical capability of what the game is going to give you, and they kind of try and set the scene of the overall storyline for it. Multiplayer, we will see, it will come, and I'm sure there will be new modes, especially with all of these new gadgets.
I'm interested to see how they're going to affect the multiplayer, actually. There is, obviously, you have to be that's a very thin line for balancing.
Yes, definitely. And I think, hopefully, maybe Gamescom, you'll see something around the multiplayer for it. So I think seeing Sledgehammer, now third company looking at the
studio, 3-year dev cycle.
Yep.
Kevin Spacey, sadly we're not present. But yeah, it looks exciting.
Yeah, overall, Call of Duty for me, I think this will hopefully reinvigorate it slightly. I think a third studio, as you say, working on it, the dev cycle will increase. So I would expect to see a load of new stuff coming just for the single player as well. People do live for the multiplayer. We know that's what Call of Duty is all about. And hopefully we'll see more of that very, very soon.
So one of the sort of strange things about this year's E3 is that there weren't that very many big surprises because everything sort of leaked about a week or two prior. Rise of the Tomb Raider, though, was the big sort of surprise for me. I didn't expect... I knew it was... You kind of could guess that it was coming, but I didn't expect to see it quite so soon.
No, and I loved the first Tomb Raider.
Yes.
So you're right, it sold loads and loads on the original, so we knew there was going to be a sequel, but yeah, I was not expecting to see that. So when the trailer started, you looked at it and you kind of went,
What's this? Is this a new IP?
Yeah, and then suddenly you heard the words and you saw the little bit of the face and then you saw the bow and arrow. And so, yeah. I was super stoked. I love that franchise, so I can't wait to see more of that game.
I loved Sunset Overdrive. I wasn't entirely convinced when it got announced last year. I wasn't too sure on what it was, but this year's trailer and gameplay, it was very irreverent, it was very self-aware, and just the moment where he says, of course you can, it's a video game, I was sold.
Yeah, it's a new franchise again, and it's so colourful and bright. There's so much going on. If you look at it, for me, there's kind of like a Jet Set Radio meets Dead Rising meets Saints Row with a kind of bit of Tony Hawk's in there as well. So, yeah, I think there's going to be... It's got a success because it's new IP with a new generation of console and it's exclusive on Xbox One.
And, of course, the show closer, new Crackdown.
Yeah, I mean, again, love this franchise. Again, exclusive to Xbox One. Played the first 2, and again, it looks similar to what they've done with the first 2. Better graphics. I would expect a much bigger city.
Yes.
Don't know a huge amount because there wasn't actually any gameplay that we saw, but yeah, another exciting buzz.
And then off to Ubisoft.
Yes.
So the game that we haven't talked about that did have a big hit at Microsoft's show was Assassin's Creed Unity. And Unity just looks fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, again, just on next gen. So graphically, we know it's going to be hopefully far superior to what we've seen in the past. I, like you, have played through all of the
Every
previous
single
games.
one.
Black Flag, I was a little bit.
That's the thing, because I adored Black Flag, and I really loved it, and I thought they'd fixed sort of the boating bit. It felt a lot more sort of streamlined. So that surprised me when you're kind of going back inland to France at the height of the revolution. But
Yeah, if you look at that sort of scenario, it doesn't look like there's any water involved in this one. But for me, Ubisoft, French company, they're going to go to their roots, I would say, and I think it's a great era.
Yes.
And the big thing for me for this franchise is having your friends join you in this
Yes.
game. So if they're joinable, we don't know for definite yet, but if they are joinable throughout the whole of the campaign, that could be huge. I mean, just imagine running around doing these campaign missions. It always was. You always take some time over how you would get there, and there's so many different ways you can do the mission. But now you've got 3 other people that can also be part of it.
and over party chat, sort of deciding your tactics
Exactly,
to take
yeah.
Baron
It's
Sand.
just
It'd
going
be
to, for
great.
me, reinvigorate this franchise.
I think probably my favourite game that I saw was Far Cry 4.
You love Far Cry. I loved Far Cry 3.
Yes.
Again, I played through that and Blood Dragon.
Yes, and so Far Cry 4 played it on the show floor, and so it's kind of one of those games where within 5 minutes I rode an elephant, I stamped on some people, mauled them with an elephant, and then got a grenade launcher and shot down a helicopter. And it was just, that to me is sort of
What other game can you do that?
the quintessential Far Cry experience, where everything is just as fantastical and explosive as you'd want it to be.
Yeah, and the storyline itself, again, we know set in the Himalayas, so much different setting to the original Far Cry 3.
Right.
And a really interesting one for me on Far Cry 4 is that if you don't own the game and your friend does, you can actually join them if you're online in a cooperative mission. So
That's
it doesn't
great.
unlock the overall single player campaign, but you can play co-op missions even if you don't own the game, which I think is a great idea and I think a really good thing from Ubisoft to bring into this one.
So more co-op action in The Division. We got
Yeah.
to see more of it. So it was kind of teased a little bit last year, and now this was its big E3 showing.
Yep, I think Division is going to be kind of like the watchdogs of next year. So it's got that 2-year cycle of when it was first announced. We've seen a lot more of it this time. It's got, for me, kind of a Ghost Recon meets The Last of Us feel. So yeah, I think Division, one of my highlights of the overall E3.
This is the day we've been waiting for. Years of training, years of sacrifice. This is for the jobs you streamlined, the debts you collected. This is for the homes you foreclosed on, the bailouts you took.
E3.
And another big reveal that no one really saw coming is a new Rainbow Six. It's been 6 years.
6 years I've waited for this, and I know there was loads of things previously about a Rainbow Six game coming a couple of years ago. They've waited. Love it. From what I saw obviously the bit at the press conference, and I also got to see a bit more on the show floor. I got some behind closed doors stuff, which was fantastic to actually see. Interestingly, they stated it's pretty much all going to be an indoor game.
That's
So
cool.
we believe there's going to be some form of campaign to it, which
Yes.
might be separate. But yeah, for me, I love Rainbow Six, and I cannot wait to play that game.
So then after Ubisoft, it was EA.
Yes.
Show opener, Star Wars.
I was so hoping this was going to be there, and it was. We didn't see a huge amount of what it's going to be like.
Instead of just sort of, giving us a teaser trailer, they would give you that behind-the-scenes sort of look at the development studio. So at BioWare, we saw the new Mass Effect,
Yep.
DICE, we saw Mirror's Edge, and Battlefront.
Yep.
And it was it's quite nice to know that, it's not just sort of, here's a trailer, we'll see you in 2 years. It's the team is working on it, and you can see them do it, and you can see where they're coming from.
Yeah, there was this huge emphasis of all about we're doing everything for the gamers, and they wanted to do this so that people could give them their feedback. We're seeing a lot more alphas, we're seeing a lot more betas coming through a lot earlier, and they're taking people's feedback on board, kind of like what Microsoft did around the hardware last year.
Yes.
They've listened, they've changed things, and it's worked out for them. So yeah, it started with Star Wars. We didn't see a huge amount, but yeah, as you say,
Yeah.
the guys from DICE, they were over in a random, I don't know where
They
the
were.
country
They
was,
went to
but
Hoth,
yeah,
basically.
so wherever Hoth
and
is,
they were
and
at
they were crawling.
Lucasfilm, and you can tell they're going really, traditional.
It's just the
and
detail
yeah.
that they're going after, reenacting scenes just so they could experience what it was. I mean, and again, wanted to see more. Didn't really see a huge amount, but what I did see just excited me just as much as previously from just seeing an ATAT's foot come down over a speeder. So brilliant. And then from there, I think for me, the other one that stood out was obviously closing the show, Battlefield Hardline.
I love that. I love sort of those big spectacle moments when they do it at E3. So it's sort of like the game's available now. The way EA did it was, and you can play Battlefield Hardline right now.
Yeah,
Curtain
curtains.
drops.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's
Clips to people stood on the top of a skyscraper
Yeah,
in
that was
LA,
great.
getting sunburnt,
Yeah.
but literally playing the Hardline beta on that's obviously available on PS4 and PC currently.
You have the right to remain silent.